Hi, Niels. It's Niels Kunze. How do you pronounce your last name? Kunz?
Okay, if you're an English speaker, it's Kunz. If you're a
Uh-huh.
German speaker, it's Kunze.
Kunzen, then I will call you Kunzen. I like that
Kunze. Kunze.
better.
Yeah. You,
Okay.
you pronounce the E on the end if you're a German speaker,
Okay.
which
Nice.
I always thought was really kind of neat that in German it's a two-syllable last name and in English it's only one syllable.
Yeah, a lot of names in English just don't have the resonance of the original language. Well, I'm going to introduce you real briefly. And I know you just recently did an interview with Shane and you talked a lot about yourself and who you are. And I've known Niels now for 5, 6 years,
Something
7.
like that.
Yeah, and occasionally we get together on a chat and we have a talk, and months can go by and we get back on together, and we're very always pleased that we're sort of tracking some of the same information. So he's a multi-talented guy. He's a writer. I've loved reading what he writes, and I know he's in the process of putting together a book on health. So let's talk about health today and the body temple.
Okay.
And yeah, and I'll just do a little introduction of where I'm at with it, Niels, and then we can kind of take off. And I do want to say about you, the first times meeting you, what impressed me is that you live what you write about. When you went out into the forest and you foraged for all that time, and so it's a part research, but it's also experiential, I imagine.
Well, that's kind of been my approach to health all along, is that I don't believe anything until I've tried it out.
Right.
I go through heaps of research and then pick out the things that kind of make sense. Like, okay, I want to try that. A good example, though, of one that completely surprised me was when I went through my health crisis that started about 4 years ago, and I was changing my diet. Um, it was that I had always believed that a plant-based diet is a healthy diet, and that's just all there is to it. I would have to eat more plant-based and cut down on the meat. And in my initial research, when I was trying to figure out my diet to heal my gut, I kept coming across the carnivore diet.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, that's just nuts. Eating only meat, only animal products. But it kept coming up in my YouTube recommendations feed. And finally I was like, okay, well, I'll look into it because it keeps coming up. And I started watching some of the videos, and people were speaking specifically to healing their gut with this all meat diet. And I was like, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do here. And I need to do it. And I just said, I have to try it. And it was the ticket. It was such a radical change that it kind of reset my system. And that's sometimes when you get, we like to get into ruts. We like to eat the same things every day for
we're
years
creatures
on
of
end.
habits. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we make these habits, and sometimes it takes a real jolt to the system to just jolt you out of that rut, and you get a clearer picture. And that's the other part of my experimenting on myself, is that's how I learn about everything that I'm doing. And I can see things more clearly when I get jumped out of that rut, and I can feel a greater sensitivity to what's going on in my body.
Right. Yeah. One of the
When you're
things
just
I've realized very well, I've been doing that urine therapy for months now. And the first thing that I got from that was it set up a biofeedback loop between my body and me. Right. So I got more sensitive to what's lacking in my body and what's not. And, in my little health shop, I think the biggest challenge I have is to help people realize that everybody's different. There's no one cure-all for anybody. What works for somebody may not work for you, and get them interested in learning about this body, right? Because most people are, I was going to say blissfully ignorant, but I would say that's not the right way. They're just blindly ignorant. And so they want to go to somebody that recommends something. You take this pill, you're going to get better. And that just short circuits everything, It does, because they're not paying attention to their own feedback loop. And so, yeah, I have a gut of steel, I mean, I've never had gut issues. But I did have my own crisis, which you know about a little bit, that started last October, and it was major for me. I mean, body aches and pains, weaknesses, it was just, and I had to address it myself, kind of like you do. I think I went, okay, I'm going to look at research. I'm not going to diagnose this. I'm just not going to put a label on it. And I had to make some big dietary changes. And they're still with me today. We'll see where we go after that.
Yeah, and just making one little change leads to the next little change. One thing I've noticed in talking to people about health is that we are very, very indoctrinated into the idea of, I just need to find this one little thing. If I add this one little thing and it's the right little thing, it's just going to fix everything. And I've encountered that idea so much. Whenever I talk to people, I exchange emails. I have a public email that people can just write to me. So sometimes they do, and they talk about their health problems. And I always get that impression that they're looking for, okay, what's your one little nugget to give me? And I'm like, it's so much more complicated. You're going to have to go through a procedure and figure out, because there was many, many pieces to my puzzle. And all I was going through, well, I guess I shouldn't minimize it, but it was severe psoriasis on my hands. Just out of the blue when I was 51. So that was 4 years ago in the fall. Suddenly I started getting what looked like stigmata on my hands. I was like, oh, I'm turning into Christ here. But it just kept growing and growing until my entire palms and between my fingers was all just psoriasis on both hands. And anytime I made fists, the fingers would crack and bleed, and it was itchy, and I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't hold an axe properly to chop my firewood, and winter was coming at that point. So it was pretty desperate. I couldn't play guitar anymore, which was just, that was the kind of the part that was, this is unacceptable. I cannot.
Yeah, that's devastating for you, I'm sure.
That's just like, I cannot just say, okay, well, I guess my guitar playing days are over. Like, there was no way. I had to heal it. And it was a long learning process. I would say a good year and a half of 8 to 10 hours, like every single day. That's all I was doing, was reading and watching YouTube videos, and it worked out brilliantly. You can see there is not a speck of psoriasis anywhere on my hands and nowhere on my body. And I've been psoriasis free now for 23 months. And I told myself when this journey began that it was 2 years. If I can go 2 years with no symptoms, I'm going to call it cured. Good. So that's next month. February marks 2 years from when I finally cured it.
Well, no doubt you'll make it. And I see that's the aspect of, I mean, this goes into even into the human psyche, but the indoctrination of the medical mafia has been exactly that. And that germs make you sick, and this makes you sick, and be careful, and wash your hands a billion times, and all the things. And so people are definitely indoctrinated for that one pill. And unfortunately, they're not wise enough to know that they go get that one pill, and that one pill sets up another problem in the body. And then they're back again and they get the next pill. And so education, and with people, it's like, you either want to work for your health, or you're just going to keep going down this track. It takes research, it takes interest, it takes, I want to know what this is that I'm inhabiting, this body that I'm in. I've had that my whole life, so it wasn't a big deal. I mean, I learned when I was in my 20s, the whole medical scam, it was very apparent to me. So I've had many, many years to do lots of research and experiment on myself. So when you're writing your book right now, do you have like a basic overall tenet or thesis within it, or how are you doing this?
Well, I just recently kind of settled on my title, which was kind of up in the air. At first it was Template for the Healthy Human, but I think I'm going back to an old title that was or I guess it still is, a category on my blog, which is independently healthy, which is just a, simple little play on word, independently wealthy, and health is wealth. And I think once you reach middle age, you kind of figure out what that health is wealth thing is really all about. Because if you don't have your health, you got nothing. And, once you have your first major health challenge, you realize it. It's like, oh, this completely disrupted my life and it sucks. And I have to do something.
Here I am pushing 70 right now. Right. And I had never had a health crisis. I had never dealt daily with pain that was so intense that I pushed myself through it. But it was, this is how I take things in life. It's like, oh, this is a challenge before me. It's an opportunity. It's really an opportunity for me to discover more about what's going on with me. Why did this happen? And how can I move through this without running to a doctor? And it took 6 weeks to even get like half of my energy back. And, I'm still moving along and I'm doing what I fast. I've been fasting on and off. And it works for me. Now, does that work for everybody? I don't know. I really don't. And, people will ask me about what I'm doing, but I'm like, if I look at the physiology of some people, I can't say that the fast is going to be the right thing for them right now, especially if they're very toxic and they don't have a lifestyle that's going to permit them to go through the healing crisis, or they don't have the will or the determination to go through what might be a healing crisis. And so we supplement, and supplements have their place, as does homeopathy, as does dietary change. There's, but everybody, I keep getting this, everybody's an individual person when they sit in front of me.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that, there's no blanket, one medical procedure is proper for everyone. What could he be talking about?
Oh, you mean that? Yeah, it was such a great day when they decided to put needles in our arms way back when. Not. Yeah. And that, go ahead.
I just thought maybe I should disclose kind of my medical background, just my medical history, personal medical history is I've never had a prescription drug.
Okay.
So I never really bought into the system. As soon as I learned that the system isn't interested in going after root causes, like modern medicine doesn't talk about curing anything. They don't cure anything.
No.
They just manage disease, and that's what it's set up to do.
They manage symptoms.
They manage symptoms, but never cure the disease. And so I never bought into the system. I've never had a prescription drug. I've visited with a doctor. I've consulted a doctor twice as an adult in my life. We did the yearly checkups when I was a kid growing up. My mom was responsible, took us to the doctor once a year, but that always amounted to nothing. But as an adult, I've gone to the doctor twice, and both times walked out going, well, that was useless. Didn't really help me. Well, actually, one time I did get a diagnosis, but the doctor actually had to pull his textbook off the shelf while I was talking to him about what was going on.
Well,
and
at least he did that.
Comb through it and find it and go, oh, here, this is what you've got. And I was like, I could do that myself.
Yeah.
You just did. I could do that.
Yeah, doctors don't even do that anymore, though. They see a set of symptoms. They're in cahoots with the big pharma and whatever hospital they're affiliated with, and they just write a prescription, and it's just crazy.
And if this one doesn't work, we'll give you this one next time.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So you have no medical training or no? Yeah.
No, I have no medical training. I have friends that are doctors, but that's as close as that gets. Yeah, so I'm completely unqualified.
Well,
but
good.
That's another thing that pisses me off is that you always have to put disclaimers on everything, like, I'm not qualified to give medical advice. You're not qualified to take your own medical advice. Nobody's qualified for anything.
Right.
But that's just the craziness of the world we live in.
Yeah. Years ago.
It's all about a conversation with yourself and getting in touch with what's actually going on in your body. And I've always actually been a fairly intuitive person, but I'm also a very active left brain person who wants to analyze everything
Oh,
and
I
understand the
love that about
details of everything. So I tend to override my intuition.
you. Uh-huh.
But on a healing journey, you got to let intuition just tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
And in my particular case, I was so thrilled with my body. I was like, thank you for the clear message of afflicting my hands and nothing else. It was the
Mm-hmm.
clearest message that you're definitely doing something wrong and you
Mm-hmm.
have to change it.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's kind of like a hallelujah moment for people when you realize that your symptoms are your body telling you that something's off. It's not necessarily a disease. And so if you can take it that way, that opens the door. That's the first door you have to open, is realizing that instead of, oh my God, I've got something, I've got this virus, I've got this uh, germ or whatever. No, and this is what my body's telling me. And the more serious it is, the more serious you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and at the end of it, you're thankful, which is where
Oh,
I'm at now, finally. But it was super frustrating when it was happening. The beginning of it, and I didn't know what was going on. And you're trying this, you're trying that, you're adding this, you're subtracting that. And it just goes on because it took a good year and a half before I got to the place where, okay, it's clearing up. It's actually fully going away. And
so did you do a strict carnivore diet during that whole time, year and a half?
that's no, it lasted for about 5 months, I would say.
Uh-huh.
I went strict carnivore, and I was on keto before that.
Right, I remember
So yeah, so I had never tried keto before, and that was great. I was getting a good 80% of my calories from fat.
that.
Like I went deep dive into the keto and just about cut out all of my carbs. And within 5 months, I effortlessly dropped 45 pounds. Just
Wow. Well, I never get to see that if you go big or small, you're just sitting
you
there.
can usually see it a bit in my face, but
Yeah.
I look normal again. I was a bit puffy. At age 50, our band got back together for a little reunion gig to celebrate my 50th birthday. And then I saw the pictures and the videos afterwards, and I saw myself and I was like, oh, that guy's a bit chubby. Oh boy, he could really lose some weight. And
Yeah.
then, within a year after that, I started having the psoriasis and it was like, okay, it's time to fix.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where, well, you've have a whole lifetime of experience of taking care of your body, basically, right? No pharmaceutical drugs, no prescriptions and all of that. But it's so easy. You started this by saying we're creatures of, we slip into habits. We have habituary eating cycle. And the biggest one that I find across the board with myself and everybody else is carbs. People get addicted to carbohydrates. They like those pastries. They like that bread. They like the pasta, the pizza. And you probably can metabolize it pretty well when you're younger, but as your body metabolism changes, you start getting bigger. Plus, it makes you depressed. Plus, you've probably fed all the parasites in your gut that are sending constant messages to the brain, more, more, more. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one for a lot of people to cut out. Would you say substituting fats takes care of some of those cravings?
Well, that is exactly what it is that fat can satisfy that hunger.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to happen instantly. There's a couple of weeks when you're craving carbs, and let's say it even lasts a little beyond 2 weeks. It's bad for the first couple of weeks, and then you still want carbs. Like you have your heavy fatty meal, and then you're like, but I just want something for dessert, just a little something. And
Just a
so
little toast.
what I did is I bought bags of frozen blueberries
Uh-huh.
and just keep them in the freezer, pour them in a bowl, get a little bowl full, and then just pour heavy cream over it. And it would kind of freeze into ice cream because the blueberries were frozen. And then that would be dessert for me.
Yeah. Well,
No sugar added, so it didn't really have much for carbs because blueberries are very low actually on the glycemic index. And yeah.
Yeah, and I think something that, what, because I'm seeing more people lately than I had, but kind of a growing audience I have. And uh yeah, I mean, there's just things you can do for yourself, like make sure everything in your house, in your refrigerator and your cupboards is going to fit with whatever diet you're choosing to follow, right? I also think that it's a good thing to switch up your diet. So, like keto worked for you for a long time. You dropped this extra weight, you kicked yourself out of the carb habit, right? So, does that mean you're supposed to stay on keto the rest of your life?
No, and that's the next thing we should talk about. And one thing that I to decide whether I think something makes sense or not is I think about our genetic heritage and what did our ancestors do. And I live in a temperate climate. So there is extreme winter and there's extreme summer, and I only kind of we have 4 distinct seasons, but I split it into the 2 halves of the warm season and the cold season. And it's important to adjust your diet to that circadian rhythm, especially if you live in a temperate climate like I do. If you're closer to the equator, there's not such a demarcation line. It's not as important, but there still is a time when certain foods are in season and certain foods are not in season. And so I'm trying to coincide having keto in the winter. So now I'm more on the keto side of things again, now that we're in winter. And in the summer, like this past summer, I went fully back into eating all the fruits and vegetables. So it was definitely no longer a carnivore diet. And I ate all sorts of fruit. And then for 4 years, I hadn't had a banana. And this summer, I ate tons and tons of bananas. I was fully back into bananas. But come end of September, that was it. No more bananas. I'm not going to eat things completely out of season because we physiologically go through huge changes when the seasons change. Like the difference between summer and winter. I'll give you a really good study that comes from Dr. Douillard, who teaches on the basis of Ayurveda. He is actually an MD, but he relates everything back to Ayurvedic medicine. And he speaks about a study that was done on a population of deer. They were actually in captivity. And the experimenters, they decided they were going to feed the deer their winter food in the summertime. So what they would eat in the winter, like the barks off of certain bushes and trees, and whatever deer eat in the winter, I really honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. They get little roots from out underneath the snow or whatever.
And all of the deer got sick and several of them died by feeding them the same food that they would eat in the winter, but they were given it in the summer, and that's all they had available to them. And they died because of the change in your gut microbiome. The microbiome completely changes with the seasons. There are hormonal patterns. Light cycles affect those hormones. So long days and short days makes a big difference in how you digest things. These are all metabolic triggers that if you're eating summer fare in the middle of winter, which almost everybody does, right? We all go into the supermarket. It can be 30 below outside and we'll walk out with bags of oranges and coconuts and pineapples and whatever else. And that's confusing to the body because the body's getting clear signals from the daylight hours that it's winter. You go outside, get in your car, it's cold, drive to the grocery store. Clear signal to your body, it's the middle of winter. So your body's, everything's geared to winter, and then you come home with all this tropical summer food and you're just asking for trouble. And I think that's why we have, or one of the reasons why we have so much autoimmune dysfunction, which is what psoriasis is. Right. And so that's what I was heavily focused on, autoimmunity. Yeah. So I was thinking why is my immune system so confused? And I mean, because I'd never paid attention to that idea that, you know, the daylight hours and what you eat, it makes a difference. You need more vitamin C in the summertime when vitamin C is available. Your metabolism requires more vitamin C and you need less in the wintertime. Same with vitamin D.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way everything gets metabolized is completely seasonal.
Yeah.
And if you can work within that structure, I mean, you don't have to be 100%. There's one thing that I do all year round, and I'm going to continue until there's a problem, and that's coffee. You know?
I've already, I have a deal with everybody that I know that, like, wherever we go next after this realm and this experience, can we still have our coffee with us?
Coffee was
but let me bring up something, Niels, because I think it's really
Sure.
important because I've examined it. It's like everybody wants these rules, right? They want the perfect diet. And then, for a long time, no butter, it's horrible, and eat margarine, and no salt. That's probably one of the worst things out there, and so like the things like coffee, right? And I just stay away from reading on one single item all the stuff they write. This is bad. You shouldn't drink. Get rid of the coffee. My metabolism works fine with coffee. Now, if I go past 2 cups a day, I know I can feel myself. I start getting little flutters and jittery feelings. I don't like that, so I'm not going to do it. And that's like the key aspect to me of being able to feed back into yourself, right? And all the things you say about the natural rhythms, the light cycles, that's all been, like blurred over in almost every human. They don't have touch with that.
Yeah, because we're out of sync. It doesn't matter when you're living in a modern civilization like we have, and you walk into the grocery store and it's summer in the grocery store all year round.
Yeah. And, I mean, I'm fortunate being in Mexico because I live in a little bit more rural setting and I don't like grocery stores. I literally don't like grocery stores anymore. So I go to the local market down here, or I pick it up at the little organic shop. And so when we're moving, well, I feel like I know we are, we are. We're in a time of great upheaval right now. We're at a time when everything is breaking to pieces, right? So even these grocery stores are going away. The supply chain breakdowns and all of that stuff. So I would like to just have a little bit of inspiration here. On the other side of that balance is that we're given this huge opportunity right now to the medical mafia, that's all. They're taking that down on purpose too. So we have like this window of time when a conscious human being can do what you and I are talking about, can get some knowledge behind you, get interested. This is survival time, friends. And
it is survival time. Yes.
Yeah. And you may not be around on the internet. I may not be, so if you're not preparing yourself, and it's not just going out and buying extra food for your pantry, all of the things that a lot of people talk about, it's know thyself. Become knowledgeable of what and who you are. And I firmly stand in the place that even with the toxic radiations and the microwaves and the 5G, bad word, the body has an ability to adapt. If the immune system, and that's a really important thing you said earlier, if the immune system is able to respond in the correct way, we are a walking miracle.
Yes, and these times are forcing us into responsibility. We don't have a choice now. We're all being forced out of our comfort zones, and our external support systems are breaking down. It's time to figure out what can we do for ourselves, because it's going to fall on our shoulders. I hope we don't sound too doom and gloom, but I think we're going through a huge transition. It cannot be overstated what we're going through right now. And I think we're just It's
Oh,
getting into the time when we're going to get a glimpse of what it's like. I mean, the shelves are emptying out and they're not going to fill up, you know?
oh,
It's we're going through I've been calling it we're making a transition from the fifth world to the sun to the sixth sun, which is an indigenous,
exactly.
tribal idea all over the world. They have this idea that we have been in the fifth world for however long, and this now is the change of the era into the sixth world. And I
Mhm.
believe that it does involve more self-responsibility. There'll be a boost in perception. I think that
Oh, that's
perception.
happening to me. Very subtle, but very continuous right now.
So I mean, that's what we're heading into. So it's time to your body is the best place to experiment with everything, with intuition and how perceptive you are. If you have a minor health issue, this is a great time to address it,
Mhm.
figure it out. Like before I had the psoriasis, I had another autoimmune dysfunction that I just ignored because it was vitiligo, which is a loss of pigment. It
Oh,
also happened on my hands, and you get it a little bit around on my face, my eyes. I lose pigment, and that's the only symptom is that you lose pigment, so you have
right,
white spots in your skin. And I was like, whatever. I'm not that vain that I don't really care whether I ever cure that.
right.
But it's actually improving now too. So I mean, that's something that when it was just a minor little thing, I could have looked into. Well, what does it take? Because that's again autoimmune. That's an autoimmune dysfunction.
Let's sit with that for a minute because we haven't touched on, we talked about cycles and body but what about detox? Because for me, it all rests on the detox cycle of the body, that we don't let our bodies detox and we don't pay attention. So I feel like that's what happened with me. And I did finally self-diagnose that what I was experiencing was severe autoimmune response. Right. So that's why I went into detoxing.
Detoxing. I mean, I've tried. I want to say everything, but I'm sure there's tons of stuff
Will
that I
there be
didn't
something
get
new?
around to. But over the years, I've done a lot of detoxing. But in these last couple of years, what I found was really, really important was just supporting our ongoing everyday detoxing.
Yeah.
Like um, a key nutrient, magnesium. It
Hmm.
is so crucial for detox to have adequate magnesium. Just simple things like that. Antioxidant systems. So our endogenous antioxidant, there's nothing that beats glutathione, catalase, and superoxide dismutase that's made by our own bodies.
Hmm.
That can actually get inside the mitochondria to where the reactive oxygen species are being produced, and they can just stop it right there. Done.
That's where NAC or N-acetylcysteine comes in because it's what your body needs for the glutathione, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that magnesium number one, two also because we're all depleted in it.
Yep.
And I do sell as much NAC as I can keep on my shelves right now. And I've been using it for years. And in some way, I feel like that's part of why I am where I am, in spite of the fact that I smoke and, I don't have a perfect diet. But I did it because I knew I had a lot of problems with my liver many years ago. I just knew
That
it.
was my problem too, was the
I could
liver.
feel it. I could just feel it. There was something there. And now with the lung protection, with the neck. So yeah, definitely.
The most important part about detox is stop pouring the toxins in.
Well, yeah. But if
But
you're going
no,
to,
but that it needs to be said because so many people they're just well, I do my twice a year detox and I do some heavy duty cleanse that, whatever cleanse they're using and they figure, well, and that gives me license to do whatever the heck I want to do with the rest of the year. And
yeah,
it's like,
well,
no, it doesn't really work that way. You'll get yourself into trouble. And I want to point out one for me that was critical. I don't think I would have been able to heal without learning about alcohol.
okay,
We've
drinking.
also been deeply indoctrinated into this idea that 1 or 2 drinks a day is perfectly fine and may even be healthy. That's pretty well inculcated within our society. And it's one of those things that we want to believe it, so we do.
Right.
And that's kind of how I lived my life for years and years and years and years. When I was a teenager and into my early 20s, I was a heavy binge drinker, had a great time with my friends. I was a great drunk. People loved getting drunk with me. But once that phase was over, and it lasted 8 years. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure I did lots of damage at that time. But anyways, by the time I was mid 20s, I kind of got out of that phase. But I always kind of kept the, well, I like to have a beer after supper. I have my supper, have a beer, maybe 2, or a glass of wine. And once a week or twice a week, maybe it's a glass of scotch. Because I like scotch, or I did. And that became one of those entrenched habits that I was doing pretty much every day. So I would have just that 1 or 2 drinks every day, almost always right after supper. And that's the worst time to have alcohol, because your body, your liver in particular, has to deal with the alcohol, because the metabolite of alcohol is what? Acetaldehyde, I believe it's called. And that is deadly poison. If that builds up in your system, you die. And that's actually what happens in alcohol poisoning, is your liver can't keep up to the acetaldehyde that's being produced. I hate that word. I
Don't worry, I stumble over words.
So I had to stop drinking. I'm never hardwall, not going to touch a drop again, but I'd cut it down to maybe 10 drinks a year. Instead of 1 or 2 drinks a day, 10 drinks a year, less than 1 a month was, what it went down to.
Yeah.
And that was critical. My liver needed to have a break. And I would say any habit like that you think it's okay, examine it and see if it really is okay. Because, and I've learned a lot since then. There are a lot of doctors that'll get on board with me and say, yeah, if you don't quit the alcohol, if you're not willing to stop that habit so that you can heal, you just won't heal.
Yeah.
And they weren't friends of mine, but friends of my parents. It's happened twice where people we knew, they were told by their doctor, if you don't stop drinking, you will be dead in 6 months. And 2 people I know of basically came back and said, if I can't have my bottle of wine while I'm cooking dinner every night, life isn't worth living.
Right.
They kept on doing it. They were dead within 6 months. That astounds me.
Yeah. We can go a little bit more into alcohol. Besides the physiological effects it has on your body, it also carries spirits. Right. And so, if I observe somebody that drinks every day, even if it's 1 or 2, they're using alcohol to numb something in their body. I mean, in their, whatever it is. I mean, it's relaxing. We can enjoy the taste, but it's not that. It's really not that. And, once again, I think we get signals from ourselves all the time and we don't hear it, or we just discard it. Like for me with alcohol, many years ago, it was like I woke up after drinking a bunch of wine with friends over dinner, and I was somehow horrified by the conversation. It wasn't fun anymore. And I literally stopped for 5 years, just none. And it wasn't hard. It was just something in me said, you got to stop drinking. Right. It was more moral, spiritual. And I enjoy red wine and a shot of good mezcal from time to time. And that's it. That's it. And so, these are, it's kind of dancing with you through all of this is like as an encouragement towards anybody that might be listening to us that, it takes an interest, number one, in becoming healthy. You have to realize that being a healthy, vital human being, especially as you're aging, becomes very important. so that you don't become obese, so you don't become decrepit. I don't want anybody to take care of me. I mean,
No.
I want to live my life as vital as I can for as long as I can. So there's that. But there's also, we go in a little bit to the mental plane, or of being able to sit quietly with yourself long enough, to let those inner impulses, because they're always there. They're in everybody. Those impulses are always trying to speak to everybody. And then it's like building, I can do this. Not only can I do what I need to do, I have the ability to find out what it is I need to do.
Yeah. Still on the topic of detox, one thing that I'd like to point out about keto is when you're burning fat as opposed to carbohydrates, which is glucose in your, when you switch to fat and it's ketones that you're burning then in the mitochondria, you are producing 40% less oxidative stress. That's huge.
Huge.
When you eat carbs, you're producing all this reactive stuff that's just creating damage all over the place. And just by switching over to a fat-based diet for a time, you get the benefit of, okay, now 40% reduction in the oxidative stress. So that means the glutathione, the superoxide dismutase, the catalase, it's there available to do other things in your body. Whereas when you're on carbs, all the time, it's glucose firing through the system. All of those antioxidants are getting gobbled up on a continuous basis. And there's really not much left for healing time. There's nothing there to clean up the rest of it. And that's why I'm a proponent of keto, but just do it for a certain time, pick the winter time, do it for just a month if that's all you can hack it, if it doesn't feel right for you. But try it, because to me it's a tool in my toolkit that I can pull it out anytime, and I can kind of send my body into healing mode just because I've reduced the oxidative stress, which is going to reduce inflammation. And you give your body an opportunity to get on top of everything, and like, oh, okay, here we've got an opportunity to heal. And if you give your body an opportunity to heal and the tools, the resources it needs to heal, that's what it's going to do. That's what it's designed to do. That's what it's going to do.
Do you know in your research how that affects the hormones? Because it's quite a problem happening right now with a lot of people. Their hormones are really off.
Well, to address that, which I also did right off the bat, was this whole blue light pollution thing.
Okay.
And you may notice that I've got a purple light here. I switched out most of the light bulbs in my house, and what they actually are is grow lights. They're LED grow lights.
Okay.
For growing plants, but they're shifted in the red spectrum, which is for flowering. My dog is bugging me right now. So. But and these glasses, these are not my heavy duty ones, but always in front of the computer, and especially at night, if I turn on the TV, I've always got the blue blockers on, because screens, computer screens, telephone screens, television screens, they all produce blue light that gives the signal to your body that it's the middle of the day, it's noon. And if you're sending clear signals to your body that it's noon when it's the middle of the night, again, there's that confusion. No wonder your immune system is, what's going on, and so that was another thing. And that's where getting into habits can be a good thing, because I'm really into the habit of always putting on my blue blockers. Right. My eyes just feel better. I feel better. Like if I am suddenly looking at a computer and I'm not wearing my blue blockers, it's like, oh, why does that hurt?
Well, I know
Mhm.
my eyes have been super damaged by how much screen time I put in for not only viewing things, but writing and making videos and all of that. So these are kind of cheap blue blockers,
Yeah,
but
that's what these are.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
just got them not too long ago, but I can feel the damage in my eyes. I mean, the deterioration of my eyesight. So what do you
But
got for
the
that? What do you got for that, Niels?
I don't know. um, it's the hormones though that are affected the most by
Okay,
this
so
artificial
it
light
just,
pollution.
well, and that's the thing is, I've had a couple people come in lately with full on hormone analysis, right? And I'm looking at it and I'm like, yeah, that's off over there and that's off over there. And this one girl especially had everything off. Like, I mean, and I'm like, okay, they have to be able to address it from a different angle, than maybe just the thyroid or maybe just this or that, because it's such a dance. The endocrine system is dancing all the time and it's all interconnected. So, uh, yeah, so anything I can help with somebody with that, because everybody's gotten into the thyroid thing right now. Well, yeah, I'm sure our thyroids are a little messed up, but I don't think that's always the answer for everybody.
Well, and I think again, going back to getting in tune with the natural cycles,
Hmm.
that would kind of be the first place I would start. If I know that my hormones are just completely out of whack, I
Yeah.
would try to sleep, during the night and
Yeah. Well, that's when they're really, really, the one girl I'm talking about, she couldn't sleep all night. She'd be awake all night and then crash in the
well,
morning.
and that's just going to make things worse, right?
Right.
So, and I should point out that melatonin is the most powerful antioxidant our bodies produce. As I was talking about glutathione and the
Right.
rest of them, it's actually melatonin is even above glutathione. It's an even better antioxidant, has an easier time getting into the mitochondria.
Hmm.
Melatonin can slip right into the mitochondria and clean that right up as you're producing the energy. The thing about melatonin, you do need darkness at night, but the opposite side of that coin is that you need sunshine during the day.
Hmm.
Getting a little bit of sunlight during the day for, if you can get an hour, that'd be good. If you can get out at least an hour a day out into the sunshine,
Hmm.
that tells your body to produce melatonin when it's dark.
Hmm.
So, it's important to get that light as well, because everyone just assumes that, well, melatonin, I just need some darkness and that's taken care of. No, you actually need the light during the day too to
I
keep
don't,
you on the
yeah.
right cycle.
Yeah, that's the second, that's probably the topmost thing I have people coming in for is sleep. And it's magnesium. But what do you think about taking melatonin supplements?
Well, I think it's better to produce your own melatonin. I do have a bottle actually sitting on my
Uh-huh.
counter. I was just looking at everything that I have today. And I was like, oh, look at this old dropper of liquid melatonin. And I used it, but I found there were better ways of ensuring getting to sleep. Well, this is a good topic.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to get into sleep, there have been times when I go to bed and my mind is racing. I'm probably stressed about something. A good example would be, how do I pay my bills this month? Where's the money coming from? How am I going to get through this?
I
And
know.
you're lying in bed, you're supposed to be sleeping, and your mind's going through all this crazy stuff. And you can tell yourself logically that, well, I'm not going to solve my finances lying here thinking about it in
Right.
bed. But somehow just doing that doesn't switch off the mind. I came across this little trick that sounds ridiculous, but here
You.
it is.
Okay.
Relax your face.
Oh.
Relax your face. So anytime it happens that I go to bed and my mind is, churning on something and I can't turn it off, my first go to is just, I say to myself, relax your face. I just say it internally. You don't have to say it out loud. And then you just go through and find the places of tension. Is your jaw tense? Is your forehead crinkled? Are your eyes squeezing, even though your eyes are closed and it's nighttime? Are you, scrunching your face up, your cheeks? Go through everything in your face and relax your face. What's going on there is the vagus nerve, which is the rest and relax and repair.
Mhm.
Everything that we want, that we're talking about, is mediated by the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve comes from your brain, and it goes through your neck, but it also has branches that go through your face that connect up to the main. It actually goes on both sides of your neck. And if your face is making negative emotion, like it's scrunched up into anger or worry or anything negative, that registers on your vagus nervous system
Mhm.
that you're in a state of stress now. It's not time to relax. There's something going on that is keeping you. So even just mimicking emotions with your face, even if you're not feeling those emotions, but if you've
Mhm.
got a wrinkled brow like you're angry, your vagus nerve assumes you actually are angry, even though you're not angry. You're just worrying about
I'm
stuff.
a, I'm a, when I edit this, I'm going to put in a diagram of the vagus nerve system because it's fabulous. And most people don't understand that connection, not just in the face, but all the way down to the gut.
Well, yeah,
And
and I find it's easy to relax your body. Like when I'm lying in bed, and I've been shocked how many times I go, relax your face, Niels. And I find that, oh yeah, there's tension all over the place. Like I'm always so surprised that, yeah, my face is all scrunched up, and as soon as I relax my face, most of the time that's enough to do it.
if I did it right now, would I fall asleep?
Well, I hope not. I hope I can
No,
hold your
no, no.
attention.
I mean, I think it's great. I mean, that kind of leads me into something else I've been thinking about prior to speaking with you, is that something like that is so important to know, because when we know the body, then we have inner access. We may be in our home, we may be, to do something for ourselves. And I find that the body, the more you know it, the more you do for it, like relaxing your face, it responds. Right. And, it doesn't have to always be something external. It's things that we can do for ourselves that,
Yeah, which leads us right into the whole breathing exercises thing, which has been
yeah,
my favorite topic of the last year. I've only been doing consistent breathing exercises for about a year now. And the main one I'm doing
only,
is the Wim Hof method,
yeah.
which basically all you're doing is you're alternating between a stressed out state.
Mhm.
So you're over breathing for, say, 50 breaths, 40 breaths, something like that. And then you stop breathing and you're holding with empty lungs. You're just relaxing. And when I'm in that part of the breathing exercises, the first thing I do is relax my face. You're lying there. There's no air in your lungs. You've just done 40 rapid breaths. So you've basically hyperventilated, which puts you into the sympathetic fight or flight state.
Mhm.
And now you're going to hold your breath for maybe a minute. That's about where I average, is about,
Mhm.
after doing a set, then no breathing with empty lungs, and it lasts for about a minute. And in that minute, your body will fall completely into the parasympathetic. So you're basically practicing switching from stressed out to totally relaxed and repaired. And you
Mhm.
just do that. I do it about 5, 6, maybe 7 times, just going through the cycles of heavy breathing. And when you do it, it's continuous. There's no pause at the inhale, there's no pause at the exhale, and it's just continuously cycling through for about 40 to 50 breaths. Well,
Mhm.
let's say 30 to 50, because sometimes I do less.
Mhm.
And now, when Wim Hof teaches it, he always said, doesn't matter whether you breathe through your nose or you breathe through your mouth. I always breathe through my nose because there's just so much more benefits, many more benefits of nasal breathing. So I always do the inhalations through my nose. And
Mhm.
one that's kind of obscure, but I've seen good confirmation on this, is that it actually lowers your blood pressure when you breathe through your nose and there's slight resistance. So for the first 3 sets, when I'm doing the breathing exercises, my nose will be slightly plugged. It'll
Right.
be difficult to get a good clean breath as I'm lying flat on my back in my bed is where I do this. And when there's pressure, when your diaphragm is under pressure to pull that breath in, that actually lowers your blood pressure after doing it, several sets of it, by up to 10 points, that's not huge, but that's helpful. And
Well,
because you're doing it every single, or at least I'm doing it every single day, I think that's keeping my blood pressure right where it's supposed to be. It's another, and by the time I get to the 4th or 5th set of the breathing cycle, my nose is clear now, and I can just take the breaths in and out. And and I just take that to mean, okay, my blood pressure is completely normalized at this point. My sinuses have cleared. And now, and the other thing, the super important thing about breathing through the nose is the production of nitric oxide, which increases the carrying capacity of the red blood cells for oxygen. So you get higher oxygenation, but the most important, or 2 important things, is it dilates the blood vessels so the blood can get to everywhere it needs to go. And it also allows for greater oxygen exchange. So when the blood gets to those remote tissues, the oxygen is actually exchanged. Without nitric oxide, you have poor oxygen exchange with the tissues, with the cells. So nitric oxide production is super important. And for someone who's having any kind of health problems, if you're like a mouth breather at night when you sleep, you breathe through your mouth, that's an issue that you really, really should address and try to fix and become a nose breather. And that involves having to tape your mouth shut at night, and not like slap some duct tape over your mouth, but you just need one little tiny piece of tape that is just a reminder: don't breathe through my mouth, don't breathe through my mouth. And after a while, maybe at first you'll have to put a piece of tape kind of covering the whole thing, but after a few days it should be down to just one little piece of tape, just as a reminder: don't breathe through my mouth.
What if you did like a short series of breathing exercises right before you went to bed?
I think that would be
I find that, my sinuses, dust, everything gets kind of plugged up in the sinus, or doing a neti pot so that you really open up the whole sinus. Because that's something I've been, not at night, but I'm listening to you and I'm going to do some more breathing. I really am.
Okay, so the other breathing exercise that I frequently do is box breathing, and that is specific to trying to get you to relax.
Okay.
So that would be vagus nerve activation through box breathing. And just to explain for everyone, box breathing is, there's 4 components to the breath. There's the inhale, the holding with full lungs, the exhale, and the holding with empty lungs. And in box breathing, you just do it for even intervals in each of those 4 phases. And so, for instance, in box breathing, I think the longest sustained box breathing I was doing was to a count of 17, so 17 seconds. But say 15 seconds.
You hold the breath on the inhale and then let it out, or is it just
you inhale for 15 seconds, so it's a super slow inhale for 15 seconds, you're counting, and then once your lungs are full, you hold that for 15 seconds, then you exhale slowly for 15 seconds, and once they're empty, you hold with empty lungs for 15 seconds and repeat the process. Now, I'm not saying somebody should jump in at 15 seconds right away. That's something to work up. Probably start at 5 seconds. But even at 5 seconds, so it would take 20 seconds to do a full breath, box breathing at 5 seconds. So you're only taking 3 breaths per minute. That's really slowing down. The average person is going to breathe at about 12 breaths per minute. That's usually where the average comes in at. So if you can slow your breathing down to suddenly 3 breaths per minute, and that's just doing box breathing at 5 seconds, count of 5. Not hard to do. That's a good place to start. and you can build it up. And if you do it at 15 seconds, now you're breathing 1 time per minute, 1 breath per minute. And you can do that for a long time. And once you've been practiced at it,
Right.
and you can get into a very relaxed state. But if you were doing it for what you say, going to sleep, do it at something that is actually comfortable. Don't be pushing yourself, because
Right,
it's
right.
on the inhale after you've sat there with empty lungs, after a super slow exhale, empty lungs for a long time, and now you have to inhale slowly. There's all this internal pressure to just suck that air in. You really want it, and it's really hard on the inhale if you're so do it on a
Well, I
less,
just did a round with 5 seconds, which was really easy.
which is really easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So do that if it's
Mhm.
for going to bed and getting yourself into parasympathetic before going to sleep. Yeah,
Mhm.
do something that's easy at 5 seconds. You're down to three breaths per minute.
Mhm. Beautiful. Great.
Yeah.
Those are the things that people need to hear and take notes on. And when you write your book, I'm sure this will be in it, that we have in our body, we have access to its own healing mechanisms. And then the other thing that I know that you do is the cold water plunge. But going back to that, yeah. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about what cold does when you take a cold shower or you get into a cold tub.
Yeah. Well, it's to me that's part of I like to do it in the fall especially. So I fill my wood fired hot tub. I fill it with cold water and don't light the fire, so it's super cold. And it's generally right around 0 degrees Celsius. So it's right on
Mhm.
the verge of freezing. Sometimes I'm in it and there's actually ice floating around, trying not to get my head chopped off by
Mhm.
the sharp ice. But that the main reason I like to do it is because it makes me adapt to winter. Winter's coming.
Mhm.
I need to put up with minus 25, minus 30 weather.
Mhm.
I'm going to be out in that, and I have to go walking in the woods every day. It's just I
Mhm.
will not maintain my sanity if I don't do that. So I know I'm going to be out there in very cold weather, and cold immersion, it triggers physiological changes in your body. It helps your body create brown fat, which brown fat contains mitochondria that don't produce energy for movement and stuff. It produces just heat. So brown fat burns calories for heat. And so
Hmm.
it'll cold immersion will increase brown fat heading into winter so that you can generate a lot of body heat just from whatever calories you eat, which is a
Mhm.
good thing when you live where I live. I mean, you're in Mexico, so what
I
do you care? But the other
know.
but the other part of
But
what
I'm
I do,
Nordic. My genetics are Nordic. Can you understand that? Like, I crave the cold.
well, come visit.
I've been saying that for ever since I met you, but we'll see.
The other part of it is that I usually start with a cold immersion. I've only gotten up to 7 minutes. That's
A
that's my
lot.
record of sitting in 0 degree water with ice floating around for 7 minutes. And the key there is to have very calm, slow breathing. Like you
Mhm.
don't want to get in your cold plunge and be going, which is exactly what you want to do.
Right,
Like
right,
that, your body's gonna go, you're in a life or death situation here. It's time to overbreathe. And it's like, no, that's where you bring your mind in and say, I'm just gonna breathe very calmly, very steadily. And that's how I time myself. I basically count my breaths, assuming that I'm doing about 5 second
right.
in and out. The in and out cycle is about 5 seconds when I'm sitting in the cold plunge. And then after I've done my 7 minutes, if I make it that far, then I go into the wood fired sauna, which is right beside my cold plunge.
I'm coming to live there.
And that's the detox part. Like that's just a nice natural way to detox. Just work up that sweat and it's pouring off you. You're just completely soaked with sweat. Well, first you dry out from the cold plunge, so you're totally dry, and then the sweat comes, And then you jump into the cold plunge once you can't stand the sauna. And you go
Mhm,
back and forth. And that's a workout for your circulatory system.
mhm,
Your blood vessels have to constrict in the cold and expand
mhm,
in the heat.
mhm.
And it just gets everything working. I guess if you had a super bad heart condition, maybe you shouldn't do that, but generally that is considered a healthy thing to do.
Just gonna add here, do you listen to Tom Cohen, Dr. Tom Cohen?
I
No.
don't know.
Oh my gosh, I have to send you a link. He's fabulous. He's special guy. Um, yeah, I mean, he's part of the team, Andy Kaufman, Thomas Cohen, Amanda
Okay.
Palmer, Dr. Bailey, all the people that are really taking apart this whole germ theory, right? With real science. But Tom's special. And what I was going to add to what you're saying, because somebody listening to this is, well, I don't have a sauna and I'm not going to plunge myself into cold, is that he came up with, he's just getting himself kicked into gear right now, doing certain things, right? And I found that just a little bit goes a long way. In other words, if I have a hot bath, if I take my cold shower, right, get out, get myself cold, get back into the hot bath, and end with a cold shower. And so I'm building up time on that. This is my first, as much as I say I'm Nordic, it's like, most people have an aversion to cold. Like they don't, and so just a
Yep.
little, and then the breathing exercises, start with a few, but build them into your daily routine or whatever it is. And then I've been bouncing, I've been jumping. And I have to build back up my strength, and I'm working on it little by little. But just things like what we're talking about, you don't have to go to an extreme. You just start where you are.
Are you bouncing on a rebounder?
No, just on my toes.
Just on your toes. Okay.
Yeah.
That
And
what happens physiologically there is that you're moving your lymph system.
mhm,
Bouncing is one of the best ways
mhm.
to move the lymph. And it's so weird that our Western medical culture does never, ever talk about lymph. It's like it doesn't even exist. And we have 2.5 times more lymph fluid than we have blood. It's the main fluid in our bodies.
I think as we're talking, they're writing it out of the medical text right now.
I mean, it's never ever talked about, and it's absolutely central to Ayurvedic medicine.
Right.
It is the number one thing. Okay, you've got a problem. Let's see how your lymph is moving. Where do you have lymphatic drainage problems? That's the first thing they look for. And the breathing exercises, that's another added benefit of diaphragmatic breathing. So you're breathing right from the bottom of your belly. So when you take that breath, that's the first thing that rises, is the very bottom of your belly is drawing that air in right to the bottom of your lungs. But using your diaphragm in that way and doing it with these really those kinds of heavy breaths, that works the diaphragm and moves the lymph. That area right around your diaphragm is the main lymphatic exchange point between the liver and kidneys and the lymph in your entire body. So that's right there. I used to do a lot of rebounding. I have a rebounder, so I would do that specifically for my lymph system. But since I started doing the breathing every day, it's like my lymph is moving just fine. Like this
Right.
basically takes care of it. That and my walks in the woods, and I'm covered. It's all cleaning. Well, I guess throw in the saunas as well, because I can actually feel it now when there's, maybe I'm a little bit itchy. It's like, oh, time for a sauna. I need to sweat something out. There's something that needs to come out. And even when you're in the sauna, sometimes your sweat will be itchy as it's coming out. You're like, oh, I can feel the crud that's coming out. It makes me itchy. And so that's why you want to jump in the cold plunge and then wash all that crap off.
So number one is breath work. I mean, given where we are today, what we're dealing with today,
Well, it brings us back to detox again.
right.
Which the number one system for detoxing in our bodies is our breath.
Mhm,
That's the main avenue of expelling toxins is through the breath. You
mhm.
know, most people don't think of breathing even as being part of detox, but it's the number one way of detoxing. We get rid of so much stuff through our lungs. Like there's
So
a
do you
lot
have,
of gas exchange going on beyond just CO2 and oxygen. There's
right,
lots of other stuff happening.
right. So do you have like a little breakdown of the breath work that you're doing, the Wim Hof? Like if, because I want to build this into something as a kind of a little bit on the, in the description of where people can, look at and get a little more instruction and things.
Like you mean like an how-to exact
Yeah, I
procedure
mean,
kind of thing?
I'm trying to, bring everything into the most simplistic form of health as we can. Because you have that, you've got that left brain going all the time and you love the research and you get deep down into it. My experience shows me that most people aren't going to do that. So if they have something that's a simple guide, right? And not over flowery or anything, just a simple guide, it's very helpful.
Yeah, the step-by-step guide for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I even I want to mention one more thing about the when you hold your breath with empty lungs. Now, I
Oh,
haven't had terrific confirmation on this, but I've encountered it a couple times that apparently when you are not breathing and you have empty lungs, that triggers a production of human growth hormone,
yay.
which, I mean, that's, if you're going to go after a hormone, that's the one you want for sure. When you get older, human growth hormone, that's
Mhm.
going to maintain your strength, uh, your youthfulness, your vigor. I mean, that's the one. And so I make a point of doing actually, like when Wim teaches it, it's just after you do your rapid breaths, you do the
Mhm.
hold with empty lungs, and then you're back into doing the next round. I do the, well, you do a single inhale, hold that for 10 to 15 seconds, and then you go into your next round.
Okay.
But after that single breath that marks the end of that set, I then hold for about 15 to 30 seconds again. So I've just done a minute, take one breath, hold that for 10 to 15 seconds, let that out, and now hold again for I try to get to 25 seconds.
Mhm.
So I do a minute, one breath, and then 25 seconds. And I do that in every set. So I'm kind of doing the double dose on the no breathing with empty lungs because I think human growth hormone, I can't say for sure that it's true, but I've encountered it several times from credible sources. So
Well,
I
that's,
think I think it's true.
that brings me into my downloaded state. I wanted to say one more thing about the breath work too, and doing that is experientially, when you're focused on the breath, you free up another aspect of your consciousness and you become much, much more sensitive. And you can even pick up things that maybe you didn't pick up before. And, when I've done the shamanic breath work, that's always happens to me.
But that place that you're in when you have empty lungs and you're not breathing,
Uh-huh.
it's like being in the void. It's like being with God.
There you go.
That's how it feels. It's blissful.
It is because
And
it's the absolute stillness.
yeah,
And that is where we find God. I mean, we find God in everything, but the experiential gnosis that comes into one is in the absolute stillness.
yeah, I love that state, and that's what gets me to do my breath work every day. I want to be in that no breathing
Mhm.
stillness state, communing with the numinous God, as
I
I
love it.
call
The numinous God. Well, that's what I mean, you can go through tons of exoteric literature. You can, try to understand all of this mentally, and it's all the same thing. It's what you just described. I mean, that for me is 0 point. That for me is contact with the divine, all of it.
and that's what you need. All of the reading in the world can't bring you to that place. You need the experience. You absolutely need it. Yeah,
Oh,
and
Niels.
I'm a good example of someone who is resistant to that sort of thing. I, in the past especially, love to just churn things over intellectually and think about them, and maybe, make some projections of, well, what if we take that to the extreme? What would that universe look like?
Mhm.
I like to play those mental games, but now with my little health crisis that I had to apply the things I know to my life. And that's such a key thing, is applying what you know to your life,
Oh,
because
huge. That's the exercise of the will, to apply it, for everything you can think and everything you should do and every thought. No, if you're not in the actualization of it, really, because if you have to actualize yourself.
and when it comes to health, people are scared. They're
Well,
scared to experiment with things like you think you're going to screw everything up. And ooh, that reminds me, I should point out that when people start doing a breath work routine, if you're going to do the rapid breathing like the Wim Hof method, the first, I'd say, 2 weeks that you do that, it's very, very uncomfortable to do
mhm.
that heavy, rapid breathing for 40 or 50 breaths. By the end of it, I mean, your whole face might be tingling and numb. You could have cold and clammy hands. You could have a flushed face. There's all sorts of symptoms that are
Yeah.
very, very uncomfortable
Then
that,
the monkey mind, the trained brain kicks in, and you're like, "Am I hurting myself? Am I gonna hurt?" All of those things, and so good you said that. Did you happen
yeah.
to see Jordan Peterson doing Wim Hof with him?
No, I
Oh
I
my
should
gosh.
check that out.
I'll find the clip. It's hilarious. It's pretty much after he came back from, that huge health crisis he had. And he was sitting there, I'm hating this. I hate it. I hate it.
Well, I
You
did too.
huh?
When I first started the Wim Hof method, I was like, wow, this is really uncomfortable. Like I
Mhm.
really, really didn't like the after the breathing, the sensation in my body. But then as I adjusted, and then the part afterwards, of course, is when you're not breathing, when you're in the void, and then that takes over, and it's like, but this part is so awesome, but that part sucks so bad. And
Kind of like life. That
yeah,
part.
but that's exactly what you're doing, right? Is you're
Yeah.
practicing going from this state to that state, because all of that is life. Yes,
Yeah.
we go into these extreme states and we go into those extreme
Oh,
states, and
God, the
being
human.
able to transit between the two that's the key, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the human form has become so degraded by the lifestyle that have been handed to us by the what do you want to call them? I
The
don't even like the
controllers,
name
but
anymore. Huh? Controllers.
the controllers, because that's what they're
Yeah,
all about, right? Is control.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
power over others. Pooh. That's my definition of evil, is power over others.
well,
Anyone that takes pleasure in exercising power over others is engaging in evil.
yeah, and that's because they're empty inside. And that's all they've got left,
Well,
So
but there's a lot of that in the world.
I
It's
know.
almost like we set up a society of, how do we breed the most psychopaths, sociopaths, narcissists, and
Oh,
that's what we
honey,
set up is,
they're wicked wise because they did a good job over centuries of time. But we're at the end of this. So I'm going to sing hallelujah, and I'm going to do everything within me that comes through me and my friends to, you know, we're here as guides, Niels, I mean, it might be on a video channel or it might be in our personal life, but yeah, I just try to imbue every person I talk to and everything with a hell of a lot of love, you know.
and when I do get this book finished, um, my intent is to put it out there for free for everybody,
Awesome.
and it will just have a PayPal donate button at the end of it. So,
You're awesome.
and basically, I think I'll even distribute it through email. If somebody wants a personal copy sent through email, I'll just do it that way.
Wonderful.
And when you post this video, I'll give you my public email address,
Okay.
which is
Yeah.
the Niels at nielskunze.com.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
But
well,
I'll
we'll
get
do
you the
that.
right spelling and everything, and then people can write to that email address at any time. Just be aware that that email address gets tons and tons of spam, and I only clean it out once 500
Oh my God.
emails have accumulated. I go through it, and so it
After,
might take me a week to get to your email, but I
God,
do go
it's such
through
a
it
drag.
periodically.
Yeah, but let's leave it at this, Niels. And if you can send me a little basic guide on Wim Hof or where somebody can go online for that. And, let's start where we are, friends. If we're not moving towards health, vitality, we're being swallowed up by the system one way or the other. And so I'm all for helping anybody that, want,
I want to give one more tip.
yeah.
One more little tip that I try to tell everybody if they'll listen, and that's if you are getting a cold or the flu
Mhm.
and it's in your head, which drives me nuts. I hate having a congested head. Put hydrogen peroxide in your ears, one at
Okay.
a time. Fill up the ear canal, 3% hydrogen peroxide.
3%. I was just going to ask you. I just ordered 3%.
Well, some people might have issues with 3%. You could even dilute it down to 2%
Okay.
if you have issues.
Okay.
I've done it as much as at 6% in my ears, but
And so you just
that
let
was
it
when,
bubble in the ear canal.
yeah, as you lie on the one side with one ear full, it may not start bubbling right away. If you have a bit of earwax in there around the
Uh-huh.
edges of your ear canal, it'll take a while for the peroxide to penetrate into the earwax and start reacting with the
Uh-huh.
accumulated toxic debris. So it'll
Mhm.
take a little while before it starts bubbling, and you can
Okay.
hear it, of course.
Right.
So, if it doesn't happen right away, just wait a minute and see, and usually you'll see that, yeah, it's starting to build, and it's bubbling. And
I
but
put,
people that have a cold, if you have a head cold,
okay,
I beg you, try it,
okay.
do it, because everyone
Both
that
ears.
I've
How long do you wait in this ear and then when do you change
wait
over?
till the bubbling subsides substantially. It'll never completely stop. Like it'll
Mhm.
continue to bubble. Usually it's about maybe 15 minutes per ear.
Okay.
About that. My dog is bugging me again here.
Oh, does she have to go out?
Yeah, it's time to go out. So I guess we'll have to call her quits there. But I just wanted to add in, because I always forget to share the peroxide in the ears. I've been doing it ever since I had that major detox
Uh-huh.
with the yeast. I've been doing it at least every 2 weeks. I just clean my ears because it just feels good.
Well,
And
if
I love
somebody
to
has
listen
a
to music.
nebulizer, if you're starting to get heavy duty congestion in your lungs, hydrogen peroxide in a nebulizer.
Well, I
You
mean,
know,
that's the cure for just about everything to do with your lungs, respiratory infections.
right, exactly.
But we're
Oh,
not allowed to say that.
yeah, yeah, that's why I'm, my little tiny hole in the wall. And, I just keep bringing in stuff and bringing in stuff. People are surprised what I carry. So anyways, Niels, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
We'll
And
have to do some more because I know
yeah,
there's tons more information that I can go through.
I know I could keep you here for hours, but it gets a little, so we're going to really, give some information on the breathing. And I should have said, take notes while we're talking, because there's
No,
always,
no, no. I will type up something, like I'll do that tomorrow, so that by the time you get this posted, I'll have something to add
awesome.
to in the description. Just because the how-to on the breathing, I want everyone to try it. I
I
want
know.
everybody, every human being on planet Earth needs to try breathing exercises,
Yeah.
because I was just astounded at how simple a little thing this is and how awesome it is.
Oh, I know.
It's
Well,
just so awesome. And why wasn't I taught
of
this in
life.
school?
It's that simple. It's the breath of life, right? I mean, everything's right there in that. And so thank you so much. Yeah. And then when I talk to you, I should talk to you every day because you inspire me. Get off my, get off and do what I need to do for myself. I'm not doing too bad though.
Good. That's
Yeah.
the one thing I have learned as I've gotten older, is to have the stick to itiveness to actually do it, stick with it, do it every day. you know, and then I know, okay, this actually works.
Right.
You know,
Well,
so I'm
you
pretty
get,
good at that. When I adopt something new, I do it.
yeah, you get gold stars for that,
All
You do.
right.
I'm giving you a gold star for that because you do stick to it. And that's very inspiring. So,
I want to know. That's
mhm,
what it comes down to. My whole life is I want to know.
yeah.
I'm a curious bastard.
Well, thank God you are, because I am a curious chick.
And
You know, I
curiosity,
mean,
it's the antidote to fear.
uh-huh.
If
Yeah.
you're a fearful person, spark that curiosity, and that's the way to get through your fears. Curiosity will lead you through.
And then it leads to the beautiful aspect of imagination, but we'll leave that for another time.
Yep, that's a big topic.
Yeah, I know. I love you. I'm going to say goodbye
Love
right
you too.
now. Huh?
I love you too.